In the world of professional wrestling, some stories are written in the ring, with thunderous slams and breathtaking aerial maneuvers. But others, the ones that truly resonate, unfold in the quiet moments between the bells. They are tales of resilience, of heartbreak, and of the unyielding human spirit. This is one of those stories. The news of Kota Ibushi's injury spread like a shockwave through the wrestling world. A botched move, a sickening fall, and the Golden Star was stretchered out of the arena, his future shrouded in uncertainty. For months, an unnerving silence followed. Fans, accustomed to Ibushi's explosive in-ring presence and charismatic social media updates, were left with nothing but speculation. The void he left in all elite wrestling was palpable. His absence was more than just a missing spot on the roster. It was the loss of an artist, a performer who painted masterpieces of violence and grace within the squared circle. Backstage, whispers turned to concerned murmurs. His tag team partner and longtime friend, Kenny Omega, was reportedly devastated. The weight of the show must go on mentality pressing down on him. The Don Callis family angle, which was supposed to be a major storyline, was thrown into disarray, a testament to how integral Ibushi had become to AEW's creative plans in a relatively short time. The media, both mainstream and within the wrestling bubble, was in a frenzy. Clickbait headlines and speculative articles became the norm, each one attempting to piece together the puzzle of Ibushi's condition. But without a definitive word from the man himself, it was all just noise. For Ibushi's family, the silence was a different kind of torture. Wrestling is a brutal sport, a reality they had long accepted. But this injury felt different. It was a stark reminder of the physical toll the industry takes on its performers and the constant threat of a career-ending injury. The pressure on Ibushi's legacy began to mount. He was a former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, a G1 Climax winner, and a wrestler who had captured the hearts of fans worldwide with his unique blend of high-flying and hard-hitting offense. But now, his story was in danger of being defined by this one tragic moment. The question on everyone's mind was not just when he would return, but if he could ever be the same Golden Star again. Then the silence was broken. But the news that emerged was not the beacon of hope fans had been desperately waiting for. It was a grim proclamation from the doctor, a 2-year recovery timeline that felt like a death sentence for a wrestler in the prime of his career. 2 years. In the fast-paced world of professional wrestling, 2 years is an eternity. It's enough time for new stars to rise, for alliances to shift, and for the entire landscape of a promotion to change. The news was a gut punch to the wrestling community. The initial shock gave way to a wave of sadness and resignation. Social media was flooded with messages of support for Ibushi, but beneath the well-wishes, there was a palpable sense of loss. It felt like the end of an era, the closing of a chapter on one of the most exciting careers in modern wrestling. Backstage at AEW, the news was met with a somber mood. Kenny Omega, in a rare public display of vulnerability, spoke about the difficulty of continuing with the show while his friend was facing such a devastating setback. The incident served as a stark reminder of the razor's edge upon which all professional wrestlers walk, a profession where their bodies are their instruments and their art form can betray them in an instant. The media, which had been in a speculative frenzy, now had a concrete and heartbreaking story to tell. Articles were written, podcasts were recorded, all dissecting the implications of Ibushi's 2-year absence. The narrative was one of a career cut short, a star extinguished before his time. For Ibushi's family, the doctor's words were a confirmation of their worst fears. The long and arduous road to recovery that lay ahead was a daunting prospect. The physical pain of the injury was immense, but the psychological toll of such a long layoff was equally, if not more, challenging. The pressure on Ibushi's legacy intensified. Would he be remembered as the Golden Star, the man who defied gravity and expectations, all as a cautionary tale, a wrestler whose body ultimately failed him? The weight of this question, and the 2 long years of rehabilitation that stretched before him was a burden that would test the limits of his legendary fighting spirit. Just as the wrestling world had begun to accept the grim reality of a 2-year-long winter. Without the Golden Star, a new message appeared. It was a post on Ibushi's Instagram account, a platform that had been dormant since the injury. The message was short, but its impact was seismic. "I suffered a serious injury," he wrote. "The doctor told me that it would take about 2 years for me to return to competition. However, it seems that I don't need that." The words hung in the air, a stunning defiance of the doctor's prognosis. Accompanying the text was a video, a grainy, intimate glimpse into his rehabilitation. In it, Ibushi, looking gaunt but determined, was exercising his legs with kettlebells, a simple act that spoke volumes about his unwavering resolve. The news spread like wildfire, igniting a firestorm of excitement and disbelief. Fans, who had been mourning the loss of their hero, were suddenly filled with a renewed sense of hope. The internet buzzed with speculation. Was it possible? Could Ibushi really defy the odds and return to the ring sooner than expected? The backstage reaction at AEW was one of cautious optimism. While everyone was thrilled to see Ibushi's fighting spirit, they also knew the dangers of rushing a return from such a serious injury. Kenny Omega, while undoubtedly overjoyed at his friend's progress, likely felt a sense of trepidation. He had seen firsthand the brutal reality of wrestling injuries, and he would want to ensure that Ibushi was 100% before he even considered stepping back into the ring. The media, which had been so quick to write Ibushi's career obituary, was now scrambling to keep up with this unexpected twist. The narrative shifted from one of tragedy to one of triumph, of a wrestler who was refusing to be defined by his injuries. For Ibushi's family, the video was a beacon of light in a dark time. It was a testament to his incredible strength, not just physical, but mental. They knew the road ahead was still long, but for the first time since the injury, they had a reason to be truly hopeful. The pressure on Ibushi's legacy remained, but now it was a different kind of pressure. It was the pressure to complete this incredible comeback story, to return to the ring and prove that the Golden Star could shine brighter than ever before. The 2-year timeline had been shattered, and in its place was a new and far more exciting question, not if, but when would Kota Ibushi return? Ibushi's unexpected announcement sent a ripple effect throughout the wrestling world, a testament to the impact he has had on the industry. It wasn't just about one man's recovery. It was a story that touched upon some of the most sensitive and important issues in professional wrestling. The fan reaction was, of course, overwhelmingly positive. But beyond the initial excitement, a more nuanced conversation began to emerge. Fans started to discuss the immense pressure that wrestlers are under to return to the ring as quickly as possible, often at the expense of their long-term health. Ibushi's statement, "But that doesn't mean I'll take any easy steps," became a rallying cry for a more responsible and compassionate approach to wrestler injuries. Backstage at AEW, the conversation was likely even more complex. While on the surface, everyone would be publicly supportive of Ibushi's recovery, there would undoubtedly be a range of private opinions. Some might see his determination as an inspiration, a testament to the fighting spirit that all wrestlers possess. Others, however, might view it as a risky and potentially reckless decision. The wrestling industry is littered with cautionary tales of wrestlers who return too soon from injury, only to re-aggravate their condition and cut their careers even shorter. The media, as always, was quick to capitalize on the drama. The Ibushi effect became a popular talking point, with pundits and analysts debating the potential consequences of his early return. Would it set a dangerous precedent for other injured wrestlers? Or would it inspire a new generation of performers to take a more proactive and empowered approach to their own health and recovery? For Ibushi's family, the ripple effect was a more personal one. They were caught between the joy of his progress and the fear of a potential setback. They were his biggest supporters, but they were also the ones who would have to pick up the pieces if his comeback story didn't have a happy ending. The pressure on Ibushi's legacy, which had been so intensely focused on his in-ring accomplishments, now had a new dimension. He was no longer just a wrestler. He was a symbol of hope, of resilience, and of the enduring power of the human spirit. But he was also a symbol of the immense risks and sacrifices that are inherent in the world of professional wrestling. His story had become a mirror, reflecting the best and the worst of the industry he loved. As the initial shock and excitement of Ibushi's announcement began to subside, a new and more unsettling question emerged. What if the doctor's initial prognosis was not just a medical opinion, but a warning? What if the 2-year timeline was not a prediction, but a plea for caution? A desperate attempt to protect a wrestler from his own fighting spirit? The video of Ibushi exercising with kettlebells, which had initially been seen as a symbol of hope, could also be interpreted in a more sinister light. Was it a sign of his incredible recovery, or a desperate attempt to prove to himself and to the world that he was not broken? The pressure to return, not just from the fans and the media, but from within himself, could be an even more dangerous opponent than any he had ever faced in the ring. The wrestling industry has a dark history of wrestlers who have pushed their bodies to the breaking point and beyond. The show must go on mentality, which is so often praised as a sign of dedication and toughness, can also be a recipe for disaster. Ibushi, with his legendary tolerance for pain and his almost superhuman ability to absorb punishment, was a prime candidate to fall into this trap. The unseen consequences of his early return could be devastating. A re-aggravation of his injury could not only end his career, but it could also have a lasting impact on his quality of life. The Golden Star, the man who had brought so much joy to so many people, could be left with a lifetime of chronic pain and regret. And what about the auras of invincibility that once surrounded him? Could it ever be the same? Every time he would step into the ring, the audience would hold their breath, not in anticipation of his next spectacular move, but in fear of his next devastating injury. The Golden Star would no longer be a symbol of breathtaking athleticism, but a constant reminder of the fragility of the human body. Perhaps the ultimate twist in this story is not whether Ibushi will return to the ring, but what he will find when he gets there. Will he find the roar of the crowd and the thrill of competition? Or will he find a world that has moved on? A world that is no longer willing to risk the health and well-being of its heroes for the sake of entertainment? The answer to that question will not be found in a doctor's report or a social media update. It will be found in the quiet moments between the bells, in the unspoken words and the unseen consequences of a decision that has everyone talking.